Hello everyone, this is our Unit 3 test remediation. I'm going to go over some of the most missed questions with you. This first one is number 3 from the open window passage. It says, which line from the story foreshadows the trick the niece will play? And so if we take a look, foreshadowing has to do with that concept of giving information that kind of hints at something. And we are looking at this concept of the trick the niece will play. And so our options are, her great tragedy happened just 3 years ago, said the child. That would be since your sister's time. And so we're given some information as to what that tragedy is, or that there is a tragedy. All right, so does this foreshadow a trick that she'll play? Not sure. If you read the whole passage, though, and you understand what happens, the tragedy was all made up, so this is not really the foreshadowing of the trick. B says, my aunt will be down presently, Mr. Nuttall, said a very self-possessed young lady of 15. In the meantime, you must try and put up with me. Now, this one is just giving information that she's saying, perhaps that, she's a little playful, or she is, I don't know, maybe not what he is here for, right? If you have to put up with someone that's younger and you're here for a certain purpose. So it's not really foreshadowing any kind of trick. And then C, then you know practically nothing about my aunt, pursued the self-possessed young lady. And C is the correct answer because if the character, Mr. Nuttall, knows nothing about her aunt, then she can easily trick him by making things up. And if you look, there's even that question mark that she is questioning if he knows anything about her. Okay, so that answer is C. The next most missed question was the cask of Amontillado, passage and questions 6 and 7. So 6 says, which line from the story reveals Montresor's true intentions in his dealings with Fortunato? And A says, come, I said with the decision, we'll go back, your health is precious. Now, reading the passage, we realize that that's not his true intentions. He is not concerned. He is faking that. Okay, so that's not what we're looking for true intentions. B says, with these materials and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. And that's exactly what he is trying to do. He's trying to build him into the cast or vault, and that is his true intention. He's trying to kind of bury him alive. C says, but to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud. It's just an action. It's not really revealing his intentions in dealings with him. So just looking at the word choice closely in the question, B is your correct answer. And then number 7, how does the author create a sense of tension? And this is also in the Cask of Amontillado. So just to recap, this was the Poe passage where Fortunato and Montresor, we were going to go down into the cask for the very fine wine Amontillado. That was what Montresor promised Fortunato, but instead he had plans, and that was revealed at the very beginning. He had plans to kind of like redemption. We're not really sure what he did to deserve that, but we find out that that was his plan. So how does he create a sense of tension in that passage? Is it A, the author uses dialogue to slow the pace? B, the author uses flashback to reveal secrets about the main characters? And we actually don't get much as far as flashbacks, like what happened, why they are at odds, or at least why is Montresor at odds with Fortunato. So we don't really have that one. We can eliminate it. C, the author intentionally withholds information from readers, leaving them in the dark about the characters' motivations. And that's not the case either, because we're informed at the beginning what the situation is, just because we only have an excerpt from the cask. The dialogue slowing the pace definitely helps to create that tension. Okay, so that sense of tension is created through the dialogue. Without it, the story would just read pretty quickly. But because they have conversation, it definitely slows things down. It makes the reader wonder, how long is this going to take? Where are we headed? What's going on? So creating that tension. And then the last question was actually 12 from the autobiography of Ben Franklin. But because there was a part A and a part B, we need to look at part A first and make sure we make sense of that um, to get part B correct. So this one is a little bit tricky because Ben Franklin and the concept of humor, we talked about it being subjective. Ben Franklin wrote the witches trial that we read. And he's, somebody you kind of really have to read and understand to get the humor that he is trying to convey. He writes with a lot of sarcasm, and sometimes, because of the time period, we don't always pick that up. So if we look at 11, Part A, what effect does the phrase, my father intending to devote me as the tithe of his sons to the service of the church, have on the meaning of this passage? And the answer was, it implies he has no choice in the career he will have. So just how he's phrasing that, my father intending to devote me as the tithe of his sons to the service of the church, just his phrasing and wording, it's pretty exaggerated there. He could have just said, my dad pretty much promised my service to the church. Okay, but he uses intending to devote me. And yes, it implies he has no choice in the career he will have, but that helps with part B, which says, how does this phrase, same one, contribute to the passage's tone? And the correct answer is actually that it adds a touch of humor, which I was hinting at. Again, when we think about when we read the witch trials and we were trying to dive into that subjective humor because of the time period, but because he's kind of exaggerating here. And if you weren't sure, you could do process of elimination because it's definitely not creating a sense of hopefulness. Um, if you look at the whole passage that's provided, he's kind of would be eye rolling, like, great, you're making me do this. It's not that he's hopeful about it. He doesn't want to be doing that. Um, and the concept of it offering a sense of obligation, um, that's not really that's not really the information that we get from that in general when we're looking at tone. Tone is that attitude, okay? So humor is the answer. And like I said, those were the most missed questions on your Unit 3 test. If you did not earn a 70% or above, you should be retaking that today during your asynchronous work time. If you have questions about any of the other questions I didn't go over, just send me an email so I can help you to kind of decipher that. And have a good day.